recording too already, and the microphone's on me, so like all the dumb things I'm saying, he'll just cut out real easily, but it might annoy him for the next 10 seconds. Okay, ready? And how now, brown cow? Well, good morning, everybody. I am the one and only and the infamous Zach Zabalos. I am the Veteran Support Specialist for GallantFew, also serve in the Marine Corps. So I would like to welcome all of you for attending this December Metroport Veteran Association breakfast. We're going to go ahead and kick off with some hellos and introductions. And first, we're going to start with the pledge. So please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. We're going to have a moment of silence for all of those who cannot join us today. Thank you. Go ahead and take a seat. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and start off with our introductions. We're going to start in the back corner. So if you wouldn't mind, just go ahead and stand up, say your name, your branch of service if you're a veteran, or what brought you here. Sir.
Steve Whitcomb, Air Force. Steve Root, Air Force. Carl Monroe. Ed Turner, Air Force. Everybody that's Air Force.
We own the last table, Air Force.
Tommy Lewis, Navy, and by the way, just as part of the introduction, Zach got into the University of North Texas last week. So
thank you, Tommy. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Tommy. Thank you, sir.
Mean Green.
Yep. Go Mean Green.
And Mark Martell's Army.
Chet Drury, United States Marine Corps.
Milan, Georgia, United States Army, Eagle Army.
Charlie Patterson, Navy, and today is the Army-Navy Games, so be Army.
My name.
Wally, Marine Corps.
I Rodriguez, Army.
Dick Allenberger, Air Force. Dayton Hahn, Army. He brought me here, so blame on him.
Jason Campbell, Air Force.
Kelly Castaway, Patriot.
Rob Bickle, Army.
My name is Tommy Rios Jr., Air Force.
Jerry Mazinowski, Navy.
Okay. Kathy Jones, Army.
Colin Moffitt, Army. Brian Glassheader, Air Force.
Doug Rose, retired United States Air Force.
Thank you. I'm Zach Zabalos. I served in the Marine Corps as well. Quick short story. Chad and I met in 2009. We were both in a side platoon for the time being, waiting to pick up into training. So we met in 2009, and then all of a sudden, after COVID hit, we met at the rock climbing gym, and we're like, I know you, and then rekindled that. So we say we don't say small world in the Marine Corps, we say small corps. So it's always good to see him. Chad's always running up and down the country, so it's good to see him today. Okay, so we have an announcement over wreaths across America.
Yes,
Mrs. Ladich.
So, Saturday, 1 week from today, 11 o'clock at the Medland Cemetery. We need volunteers to help put out the wreaths. We have a very brief ceremony and very patriotic, very moving, and tells a little bit about why we do that, to educate people about our veterans and how it started. So please come out, bring your family. It's a great picture taking. Again, we need people to help place wreaths on the graves. We have 71 veterans that are buried there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
At the Medland Cemetery, right across from the Country Club here, Club, at 11 o'clock. So we start our ceremony at the same time they place the wreaths in Arlington. So it's something that we're part of the whole geez, I think there's like 3,500 cemeteries. We'll all be doing it at the same time, no matter what time zone they're in.
So you want people there at 11 or?
A little before,
Okay.
you know, we
Yeah.
start on
Just wanna
time.
make
Yeah.
It starts at 11, unlike today's program, which is unusual. But, yeah, we're usually done at about noon, so depending how many people show up, and if you don't feel capable to walk around on the cemetery and place a wreath, just come and see what it's all about, because it's very moving, and it's most appropriate for our veterans that are buried there for the holidays.
This is something that I want to give kudos to Emily and Minnie Bone and all those folks that work along
Kelly,
with that. Kelly. 71 veterans are buried in Medland Cemetery, right? That is phenomenal, because when we started the first Memorial Day thing, we thought there was like 5. And because of Emily and her crew and people that got super involved, they started doing some research, and they found out that there were more and more veterans, and they identified those veterans. And so we have veterans there that have not had a wreath placed on their headstone ever until like 2 or 3 years ago when for the first time it happened. And so, Wreaths Across America, their objective is every veteran's tomb gets a wreath laid on it. So I just think it's awesome that your crew has been able to do that. I think I'm going to actually be there this year because I've always been in Colorado all the previous years, so I'm looking forward to being out there this year.
And we do have, we have a QR code that you can scan and sponsor a wreath, which is $17. Inflation, it took it up to $2 more this year. But we were very lucky that we had 300 over the amount we needed, and we have now donated those to the National Cemetery in Dallas. So no wreath goes to waste. We don't hoard our wreaths. We pass it on to somebody else. And I said hoard in my language.
I got it.
Well,
You Army guys.
yeah, I feel like we need some velvet ropes between that table and every other table here. You two need to go over there. So let's just start the segregation now. I'm just kidding. Great job, ladies. It's always been a very, very nice event, very formal event, very respectful. And I've been attending the last 3 or 4 years, so I appreciate the things that you do as well for that. If you do have a phone and you need the address, I would encourage you to take a picture right there. The address is there if you're not local here or if it's your first time, or if you have difficulty with Google Maps or any other types of maps software out there. But please come. It is a great event.
Oh, and you also park at the country club, and we have golf carts that will shuttle you back and forth. So there's unless you feel motivated to walk.
And if you're on Facebook, please look up the Metroport Veteran Association Facebook page along with Metroport Veterans, Metroport Vets, and we'll make sure that this information is up there until at least the morning of the event. So if you have any questions, my name is Zach. Please reach out to me or Carl. Aside from that, any other announcements that somebody wants to give? Mr. Georgia.
I got one.
Yes, you do.
Okay, so I know this is a faux pas for sure because I ordered one of these. And I think if you go online, you can get these for like $25. Okay, so I ordered one. I got 12. I know they're busy at Amazon, and they're probably just like, just slinging stuff. So anyway, if you've got a jacket or whatever, and you'd like to put a really cool, decal on the back of it, these are really cool. And so I'm selling them for $10.
Trying to profit.
Okay, only problem is they don't have the Space Force emblem. But this says anybody who's involved in protecting our freedom, so they hadn't got there yet. Space Force said it.
They haven't earned their national defense ribbon, so we got it. Okay. All right, well, thank you, Mr. Georgia. We have Mr. Douglas Rhodes over here.
In 2 weeks, it's the Armed Forces Bowl at Hayward Carter Stadium in Fort Worth and TCU. It's Air Force versus James Madison. I have one ticket. If you have access and would like one ticket, I'll pass it on to you. I'm going with my son-in-law and my grandson to enjoy the game. I'll let you know. I usually sit in the south end zone. I like to be there when they get the extra points and field goals and stand up so that they can see me on TV. If you're interested in the extra ticket that I have, please let me know. If you have access, I can transfer it to you via email. And I'd be very happy to see you at the game, because I will be there.
And in addition to that, if you go to the Armed Forces Bowl website, veterans get 4 free tickets too.
That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Great. Thank y'all for the information. 30 seconds.
Zach would like me to make an announcement. So, I haven't been here in a while because I've been going on work travel, but I run my own business on the side called Valor Academic, and I work with getting veterans into college. Zach and I had a couple conversations on his journey. Work with getting veterans into schools, so if you know any veterans that are trying to pick between a couple colleges, or they need to transfer, or they're having any issues with their benefits, please feel free to send them my way, and I'm happy to help them for free.
Thanks, Chad. Appreciate it. Okay. We're going to go ahead. Any alibis?
Yeah, I want to point out, we've got MVA t-shirts back here. If you don't have one, take one. And if you want to make a donation, optional, but get yourself an MVA t-shirt and call it a Christmas present from GallantFew.
The gift
After
that,
we're done. All right.
Very nice.
gift that keeps on giving. Okay, so I'm going to do a brief introduction of our speaker today as he works his way up here discreetly. So Carl Munger is our speaker today. Some of us have known him, some of us do not know him very well. I'm going to highlight on some of the things just off the top of my brain. Carl served in the 1900s, as he says, in the Ranger Regiment. He was with 1st Battalion, 75th Regiment. From there, I believe he became a CO of a unit in Hawaii. From his departure of the Army in the mid-90s, he was able to communicate with brethren range in Afghanistan, which led him kind of to the establishment of GallantFew. GallantFew provides coaching, counseling, and connecting for veterans leaving the military, coming home. And in the state of Texas, Carl does provide counseling services. I provide coaching service to veterans nationwide. I'm working with a veteran in Mississippi and California. But with that being said, with the founding of GallantFew, we've helped thousands and thousands of veterans. And it's all stemmed from Carl's idea of connecting veterans as soon as they transition out of the military, which a lot of us know can be a very, very difficult time. It can be very arduous, very harsh on our lives in various aspects, professionally, emotionally, socially, physically, and spiritually as well. So with that founding of GallantFew, we've been able to help veterans, and we are TW. Rangers lead the way. So Carl led the way, with that being said. And I wouldn't be here for him if it wasn't for him and GallantFew. And I'm at the success that I am at my point because of the mentorship, the guidance, the love, the empathy, and the gentle shoving occasionally. But I think there's a few people here that could probably agree with that. But with that being said, we're all better people because of this man. And I'm pleased to announce Mr. Carl Munger.
So I'm super proud of Zach because of a number of reasons, and sometimes there's way more than gentle prodding there. But how many members of your family have ever gone to college?
Just my dad, that's it.
So you are the first one to go straight into, finally. He is now a student at UNT, so super proud of him, and he's planning on pursuing a counseling track, which is we need more veterans that are providing mental health services, especially for other veterans. Doug.
As a junior.
Huh?
He's going in as a junior.
Yeah. Yep, he's on the accelerated program. He's super smart. Well, community college prep kind of helps with that. I wanted to congratulate Doug. He's had a big achievement. Do you want to share your big achievement or not? It's up to you.
Of course, I like talking about myself.
I didn't know that.
I'm great at talking. Last month, I completed 2 different programs. I completed the Veterans Treatment Court in Tarrant County and commenced from Veterans Treatment Court in Denton County. I'm a justice-involved veteran. In February of 2021, I was arrested for DWI. I had a lawyer who, in insisted that I fill out the paperwork for Veterans Treatment Court. And I'm extremely grateful that she did so, because it allowed me a full year to grow, to reconnect with veterans, which is something I need now. And I appreciate being here, and Carl's invitation 7 months ago really made it hit home for me. He even asked me to speak, and I'm grateful that I was able to do that. But just let it be known from me, I'm very grateful for the things that I've been given and the opportunities that I've been provided. Because otherwise, there's no telling where I'd be. I could be out of a home, on the street, living out of my car, no job, but I have all those things today. And Carl's played a big role in that as my counselor, and I'm very grateful for that. So thank you.
Congratulations, myself. I ran the numbers on GallantFew a couple of days ago because I got to do a year-end little video that I keep putting off. The year-end's coming, so better do it soon. We've documented services to 1,001 veterans as of the middle of last week. And I think we're around the 6,000 mark. The budget, the organization's budget's about $700,000, so $700 a veteran on average. We have some veterans that have had a dozen or more clinical counseling sessions. Those are $150 a pop. So you can kind of tell how we take the money and apply it, I think, in a really prudent way. So I'm proud of the organization and everything that we're doing. So one of the things that happened, can you hit the... So this video, it's funny because I think they had to speed it up just a little bit to make the 2-minute mark, so my voice is higher in the video than normal. First time I heard it, I'm like, well, that's weird. But the American Legion just released this video about 2 weeks ago. How do you erase the stigma of mental health and veterans being survivors of mental health care? Hi, my name is Carl Mondry. I'm the founder and executive director of GallantFew. I'm a life member of the American Legion. I'm also a licensed counselor here in Texas. And most of the work that I do is for veterans. GallantFew, besides the connecting coaching and counseling, we look at holistic 5 areas of fitness. Mental health, physical health. We also do emotional fitness, professional fitness, and social fitness. It all kind of comes together in a climbing environment. There's so many things that climbing recreates from the military experience: controlled danger, trust in somebody else, build your self-confidence, you help them succeed, they help you succeed, you encourage each other. They start doing things that rehabilitate their body, and that rehabilitates their soul, and then they become part of something again. Being able to provide that supportive environment is huge because it allows them to trust.
With our group, we have a bunch of people from different branches of service, different eras. We have a great melting pot, and I think with all of our backgrounds, as diverse as they are, has allowed me to really find a place where I belong, where I'm comfortable at, and where I feel safe and secure. I'm very, very blessed, very fortunate, very grateful, and very happy to be part of the organization.
So I want you to just close your eyes. The American Legion, when they found out that I was a counselor, they said, hey, you know, one of the things that the American Legion is big on is mental health. The Be the One campaign right now. They said, would you be willing to come in and do like once a week evening sessions to talk about mental health? So I said, absolutely. Without hope and purpose, you don't have a reason to live. What GallantFew does for me, it provides me purpose. That was so hokey. She's like, now we have to do the hero shot. What's the hero shot? Why don't you look down at the ground and then raise your head really slow? And I had to do it like 5 times because I kept cracking up when I was doing it. And that's on the National American Legion YouTube page. So it's kind of cool that they did that.
Yeah.
All right, so now I'm going to tell you about my service. You just rotate it just so I can see this. Yeah, that's good. That way I don't have to turn around and look behind me.
Okay, here.
Perfect. Thanks.
Thanks.
So I always start off by recognizing those that I served with that are no longer here. Those are all my friends that died wearing the uniform, plus one that took his own life a few years after. There's some pretty amazing people that are in that group, and our country's worse off today because they're not here. Which button do I push to forward? Yeah. Okay, so that's me. That was, you know what happens when you're getting ready to do a big airdrop and then they cancel it because of weather? That's what happened here because where we were jumping into had bad weather. So everybody runs outside the aircraft and you get cool pictures. So that was, I want to say that's at Lawson Army Airfield, I think in Georgia. So I was exposed to the military very early.
No ammo, right?
My father retired from the Army as a sergeant major, and for some reason back in those days they could bring like automatic weapons home. So we did my first military photo shoot. So my first official military photograph was airborne school, 1981. That's Charlie 122. I looked it up in the airborne book because I remembered the Charlie 122 number that was on my helmet. Every time you reported into one of the airborne instructors, you had to sound off with your number. I didn't give a crap about your name. So that's my very first photo. And I was, I think 19 years old at the time. In the middle there, that's the group that I got commissioned with, Wichita State University, 1983, the ROTC program. Did you really?
Yeah.
When did you graduate?
Well, my MA was 96.
Okay, nice. Yeah, so small world, us and Ted Lasso, right? And on the right there, my dog Trigger, and that was the first dress uniform that I had. So when I went to Fort Benning for the infantry officer basic course, the first week that I was there, they said, "Who wants to sponsor an allied officer?" And I'm like, "What does that mean?" And they said, "Well, you like mentor somebody that's from overseas that's going through the infantry officer." I had no idea that foreign officers went through our training. So I said, "Yeah, choose me." They paired me up with an Egyptian officer, and that guy, he was politically connected in Egypt. I've lost full contact with him now, but he was used to people doing things for him. And to go into an environment where we weren't doing things for him was a huge eye-opener for him. And I remember he called me one night about 9 o'clock in the dorm room there at Fort Benning, and we had a big tactics test the next day, and he wanted me to come over to his room and help him study for it. And I'm like, "Nope, ain't gonna happen. You had a month to ask me to do that." And he said, "Lieutenant Mongo, you're a very bad officer." I said, "All right, good luck." The picture on the right there was Mech Week. First time that I spent any time on a mechanized vehicle. I think that's an old 113 personnel carrier. It's got a 50 cal on it that's mounted with miles, right? So the laser gear that you shoot it, and if somebody has the receivers on the other end. So that was a lot of fun. I got the chance after that school to go to Ranger School, and the little blow up there, I tried to get a better picture of it, but it's really small, so you can kind of tell how emaciated I am. The bottom corner there, that's me and my starter wife, and that was in the days when you could still go to the airport and see people off. So my entire family, I went home on leave. So when I finished the infantry officer basic course, I showed up early, like 2 weeks early for Ranger School, thinking, I'll get to hang out and then do some PT and be ready for it to start. Oh no, when you show up there, you're a slave. And we started clearing brush, and this is like July in Georgia, and they've got us clearing running trails through the woods. And after 2 days of that, I'm like, I'm taking leave. I don't care. So I went back home and spent a couple of weeks there mentally getting ready for Ranger School. And I was pretty skinny when I was getting ready to go to Ranger School. And that's my mom in the background there in the striped dress. And in the top, that's my mom pinning on my Ranger tab. That was the day before Thanksgiving 40 years ago. So amazing how time flies.
Yeah.
My first assignment, I was platoon leader in the 9th Infantry Division, 2nd Battalion, 60th Infantry. And I thought it was really cool with my tiger stripe face paint there. My driver in that, that was actually the bottom corner, the 113 that's got the tow mount on top of it. That was the precursor for the Army's Stryker brigades. I was in they call it the high-tech test bed, and my brigade commander was Barry McCaffrey. And Barry McCaffrey was the 4-star general, became Clinton's drug czar. I mean, super, super amazing officer. Very scary to work for because he's super intense. That's where I picked up all my bad tendencies from, Zach, so you can blame it on McCaffrey whenever. I only did that line platoon job for 4 months. And then the battalion commander pegged me to be a company XO. And that's the picture where I'm sitting in the Humvee there. That's when I was a company XO. I'm sorry, take that back. I was a support platoon leader before I was the XO. So I went from a line platoon to the support platoon. Support platoon in a mech battalion, my opinion, is the most important job in the battalion because that's where you get the ammunition, the food, the fuel, the water. It all comes through that organization. So there's a lot of responsibility. All my trucks there are in that line. That's at Fort Lewis, now Lewis McChord. And that was the normal weather there, right? It was always foggy. It was always kind of damp. It was always drizzly. And then I was very proud of my Jeep that had my name stenciled on the windshield there in the top. So then I went back to Fort Benning for the Infantry Officer Advanced course, got no pictures from that. And then I went to Hawaii, where I was initially an assistant plans officer for the 1st Brigade and the 25th Infantry Division. And one of the first things that happened there was they said, we need to go fulfill the requirements of Japan's unconditional surrender from World War II. So you and a small team are going to go to Japan, embed in a Japanese infantry regiment, and make sure that they're not doing any nefarious war planning. So for 2 weeks I got to work embedded with the Japanese infantry regiment. It was a phenomenal experience. This picture here, that's one of the companies that I'm in the center, and the colonel that's next to me there, there's so much history, and because of the language barrier, I didn't get exactly his military history, but you know his family had to have been in the military in World War II. We went out and basically did all their training with them for a couple of weeks. And towards the end, they said, we're going to go on a hike tomorrow. And I said, where are we going to go for a hike? And they pointed at some hills. We're going to go over there. And so I told the team, hey, we're going on a hike tomorrow, make sure you look sharp. So I had my spit shine Cochranes on. Everybody had their best uniforms on. And we drove right past those hills. And we kept going for about an hour until we got to this mountain that is snow-capped on the top. And it was like Pikes Peak, right? We were doing this. It was a very established trail, and it was a phenomenal experience. But by the time I got to the top of that, the team and I, we were absolutely dying. And when we came down, my knees hurt so bad that I had to run. I couldn't walk anymore because of the knee pain. So I started jogging. Well, the Japanese soldiers weren't going to let an American soldier beat them to the bottom. So me and all of these guys, we were in a foot race to the bottom. It was awesome, running down to the bottom of this trail. So then I 5th Battalion, 14th Infantry. And B Company, in the top left, I'm assuming command. In the top right, I'm relinquishing command. And there was about 22 months between those two events. And that was the best job of my life. The best job that I've ever had was being in command of, at the most, 180 soldiers. Usually it was more around the 120, but we did a big exercise that I got plussed up with some other soldiers. In the center there is, on the top, my command team. My company executive officer is the little short guy to my left. On my right, and then down there in the bottom center, that's Jimmy Acuna. Jimmy was my first sergeant. And Jimmy Acuna was a LERP in Vietnam and as an E3, E4. And he was an instructor at airborne school for years. Most people in the military that knew him from airborne school. And then when the 3rd Ranger Battalion started, he was one of the first platoon sergeants in the 3rd Ranger Battalion as it started up. And then I was fortunate to get him as a first sergeant. 2 weeks before I took command, this legendary story, it was Acuna, he had just stepped in. So he stepped in like right before I came in. And he told all the soldiers on Friday, don't you go out and get a DUI because you don't want to deal with me if I have to come pick you up from the MPs. Well, one of them went out and got a DUI. So Acuna gets a call at like 2 o'clock in the morning on Sunday to come over and pick up this soldier from the MPs. This is on Schofield Barracks. So Acuna goes over there and he had, I don't know, it was like a little Datsun or some small car. And he goes to the MP station. And as legend goes, he is standing there talking to the MP about signing out this soldier, and the soldier's trying to like go over to the door like he's going to sneak out, and Acuna just grabs him with one arm and like throws him back to the other side of the room. So they walk out, and the soldier goes around to get in the passenger side of Acuna's car, and Acuna's like, "Oh no, you are not riding in my car. You're running." And so he put him in front of the car, put his hazards on, and he didn't go from the MP station to the barracks, which was a mile. He went to the top of Coley Pass and back down, which was a round trip of about 15 miles. So the whole time, he'd probably be court-martialed and thrown out of the Army if he did it now. But we had no more DUIs when I took over as a company commander. It was amazing. I got the chance to go on the USS Missouri when it was still on active duty. The kid that carried my radio had gone to the Pearl Harbor Enlisted Club the weekend before, made friends with a sailor who was on the Missouri and said, hey, you want a tour of the Missouri? And my parents had come in, and so I'm like, hey, Mom and Dad, you guys want to see the Missouri? And they're like, absolutely. So I wore my uniform, got treated like I was an admiral. They whistled me on the ship, and it was a really cool, that's probably the coolest picture that I have from when I was in the military, is standing on the Missouri there with all the guns behind me. And the bottom picture there, it's kind of hard to see me, but I'm taking a nap at the Joint Readiness Training Center, where we'd been going through a big exercise for about a week, and that was the first time I got a break. So somebody took a picture of me leaning up against a tree. Go to Korea a couple of times. One of them was for a team spirit when I was a company commander, and I got to meet the president of South Korea, Roh Tae-woo at that time. So that's me meeting the president of South Korea. And while we're standing around in the gaggle of officers, the president of South Korea's security detail was there. And one of the guys that was with me said, hey, go ask that guy what time it is. I'm like, what? Why would I do that? And he said, just go ask him what time it is. So I walked up and I said, excuse me, sir, can you tell me the time? And he raised his hand up like this, and he had a callus that ran all along the back of his hand. It was like, I don't know how many trees that guy's chopped down with his hand, but I mean, it was like, okay, that's a bad dude right there. So it was kind of fun to see that. The guy there in the center that's smiling with the helmet on in the center, that's Alex Sung. Alex had a horrible breakup. He was a West Point graduate, and he took his own life, jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge about 10 years ago, and did not share with anybody that he was going through anything. Didn't know until after it had happened. And that was one of the first things, as I was starting GallantFew, that was one of the first things that really hit me in terms of how immediate the problem is. Got to go to some pretty cool places. This is the island of Tinian. Tinian is where the Enola Gay took off to drop the bomb on Hiroshima. And we were, as a company commander in Hawaii, I got to go work with the Guamanian National Guard on a training exercise. And that was a pretty fun experience. But we got to kind of bump around on the island of Tinian. There were, you can't see it there because that was like a recreational area, but there were still landing craft, tanks, treads that were laying on the beach from the invasion, which was only, less than 40 years before that. So, it was, I'm sure a lot of that stuff is still there, but the battle was still very real on that island. One of the other cool things that I got to do was command my company through an OPFOR mission. OPFOR means opposing forces. So we got to dress like the Wolverines. If you ever seen the movie Red Dawn? My soldiers called us the warmongers. I thought that was a lot of fun. And Jimmy Acuna's in the bottom with the knife. Oh, he's in the bottom there doing the hang loose sign. Pretty cool up in the top. Funny story about that. We were supposed to be a total indigenous force, right? Hiding in the jungle, and the conventional unit was supposed to come find us. One of my platoon sergeants, I don't know why he did this, but he got a Humvee and put a machine gun on top of it, and he decided to go raid the other unit. And I didn't know any of this. So I'm deep down into the jungle, and I get a radio call from my battalion commander, and he gives me a grid coordinate, and he says, be there in an hour. And so I'm like, let's go with my RTO. And so we're running through the jungle trying to get to this grid coordinate, and I get there, and this colonel chews me up one side and down the other. Says, what the hell do you think you're doing? You're supposed to be an indigenous force. You don't have vehicles. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, sir. Can you share with me what happened? Well, this Sergeant First Class Ramsey had gotten this Humvee and just drove through their assembly area and shot everybody up. And so I had to go back and say, no, we're not going to do that. So there were a couple of times when I was in the military that I got talked to. I got the opportunity to go to the 1st Ranger Battalion. My battalion, after the one that chewed me out, was an original platoon leader in 2nd Ranger Battalion, and he commanded a company there, and then he was 1st Ranger Battalion Executive Officer. And now he's my battalion commander. And a couple of months after he took command, he called me in his office and he encouraged me to put in a packet to apply for the Ranger Regiment. And so he gave me the instructions. He's contact all your old battalion commanders, get letters of recommendation, get copies of all your awards and your evaluations and all of this stuff. And when you get all that put together, come and see me. So a month later, I have all of these letters, and they're Department of the Army. You know, they've got the gold seal. They're all embossed. And I go in, sir, I've got my packet, and all I need is your letter. And so he's like, okay. And he pulls open his desk drawer. He pulls out his notepad, and he goes, Buck, hire this guy, Jim. And he rips it off, and he hands it to me. and I'm like, you want me to send that with my packet? And he said, it's better than any other letter you have in that packet. So the regimental commander at that time was Buck Kernan. And so I sent the packet in, I got accepted, and I got orders assigned to me. So I was in Ranger School during Grenada, right? So missed that. I got orders assigning me to the Ranger Regiment, and the next day on CNN I saw that the Ranger Regiment had parachuted into Panama for Just Cause. So again, I got to miss that one. So when I showed up 1st Ranger Battalion, I was the only captain there that didn't have a combat badge. The only captain without a right shoulder patch. And so I felt like I was always behind the power curve. I was always trying to keep up with all of these people that are absolutely phenomenally capable people. But it was a wonderful experience. I got to be there for a little over 3 years. In the top left there, we're doing close quarters battle marksmanship training. The guy that is on my right side became the Ranger Regimental Commander about 10 years ago, I think. Last time I heard, he was a 2-star general. I'm not sure if he's still on active duty or not. Bottom left there, were the staff officers marching in the St. Patrick's Day Parade. And I'm the S1 at the time, the personnel officer. So it's S1, S2, 3, 4, 5. S1 is personnel, S2 is intel, S3 is operations, S4 is supply, S5 is community involvement. And now they've got like another 3 because of all the technology and all these other things that have come about. Out in front's Ken Staus. He's the battalion commander that was killed on the 29th of October, 1992, and he's the one that I wear on my wrist. I showed his picture with the other group at the beginning. In the center there, that's my daughter Jackie. We redeployed from a training exercise and we got to parachute in. So all the families got to go out to the drop zone and watch us all come in. I've got some video of that I'm not going to show here, but people in the background, you know, that hit and tumble, and you just see them, their bodies are just as they hit the ground. And you know, brings that, the famous quote, every time I see something like that, not service connected. On the top right there, that I want to say that's 29 Palms. That was, we were doing a very long movement of contact, so walking across the desert. And the bottom right was another joint readiness training exercise. And I like that picture because I've shown that to the VA like a million times to explain my back pain. And again, not service connected. I did get a chance to go to Panama to the Jungle Operations Training School about a year after the Panama invasion. So a lot of the guys that I was with training had parachuted into there for combat a year prior. So it was an interesting experience to go with them. Top left there, Marty Martin is the guy that's sitting right behind me. You can't tell that I used to dip Copenhagen at all when you look at that picture, right? Marty Martin was the battalion S3 air officer, which meant he coordinated all the airborne training and all the airframes and everything that we did. About, I want to say 2 weeks before 9/11, he was lieutenant colonel and he was the incoming commander taking over the POW MIA search and recovery operation in Vietnam. And the outgoing commander was with him. They were in a helicopter. They were flying out to go look at a potential recovery site. And the helicopter had a mechanical malfunction, fell out of the sky. So my friend Marty, his name should be on the Vietnam Wall because he died in Vietnam doing follow-on missions from the war. His name's not on the wall, but it should be. But he was killed there, and he's one of my friends that gave his life for our country. Top right there, that's a small group of us just finishing a training exercise, and I don't know if you can tell or not, but it is raining because it's like monsoon season. And on the far side there, the guy that is not holding a weapon because he was a major, he retired as a 3-star general. He was, when the Ranger Regiment changed from the Black Beret to the Tan Beret, he was the Ranger Regimental Commander at the time, right before 9/11. And he now is, I don't remember the title, but he runs the leadership school at Emory University in Atlanta. And so we're talking about getting veterans into school there. We get a lot of Rangers that get into Emory because of the connection that we have with Ken King. And the bottom left there is getting ready to do a parachute jump. And that is after that parachute jump. Somebody took a picture of me right after I landed. So again, not service connected. This is my personnel team. When I was the Battalion S1, we did a parachute assault into Ali Al Salem Airfield in Kuwait. And this was while it was still considered an active combat zone, but it was after the ground war. So we pulled our forces back, but there was still some things going on. So we got alerted, we got to go over, jump in. We parachuted about 500 Rangers, and the winds were about 32 knots, which is about triple what peacetime allowances are. And we put 45 Rangers in the hospital. And more should have gone to the hospital, but they refused to go because we were there on a mission. So I remember as you collapse an assembly area and you head out on your mission, you go through a choke point, and the senior NCO is counting you out because he wants to make sure that he gets everybody. So he's counting us out. You walk past him, there's a medic, and he's handing you a Tylenol with codeine. It was just like he was handing them out to everybody as they left the area. And the distances there are that desert is so flat. The little black dots over my shoulder there in the back, that's an entire company of Rangers that are in a big circle down the ground. One of the other cool places I got to go was Scotland. We were supposed to do a parachute assault into Scotland, but the clouds were too low, so the planes couldn't see where we were supposed to go. So we ended up landing, we got on buses, and they bussed us to where we would have landed, right? Like Army training, right? So you can't jump in, so we're just gonna put you in vehicles and take you there, and then you walk to where you're done. It's like, can't we just go to the end point instead of having to go to the start point? But it doesn't work like that. But I remember as we pull up in the buses to get out to start this, we had like a 12-mile movement across one of the lock areas. And the bus was rocking side to side because of the sleet and the wind that was coming in. And they're all like, get off the bus. And it was the start of a wonderful experience. And you can see here we're kind of going through the high ground. If you've ever been to Scotland, the reason that we're all standing here is because that peat stuff, it's just like a big sponge and it's all wet. You can't sit on it because you just immediately absorb water. So you're standing pretty much the entire time. So one of the hazing things that I got to participate in is called a prop blast. Has anybody here been prop blasted? It's probably illegal to do. You know what I'm talking about, Rob? So it's a tradition in airborne units that when you get assigned to an airborne unit after jump school, that you get initiated into the airborne community. And the way they do that is that you do a parachute jump and then you get hazed for about 12 hours. And at the end of that hazing, and it's all physical stuff like running and ruck marching and doing push-ups and all this stuff. At the end of it, it's kind of hard to see over here on the right side because it's faded out. But there's a fake door that resembles the door you exit an aircraft from. And the metal plates on that door, back there in the corner, the metal plates on that door are tied to an electrical wire that runs to a TA-312, which was a little field telephone. And if you wanted to ring the other person like a listening post, you crank this little dial and the phone on the other end rings and they know to pick it up. Well, that electrical current hurts when your hands are on those things and there's somebody in the back that's cranking that thing. I found out later it was our battalion chaplain that was back there cranking that thing. And there's a picture of me. Oh yeah, that one right there. Well, you can see my foot is curling up because of the electrical charge that's going through my body, right? And they make you stay there until the battalion commander's like, exit the aircraft. And then you jump out and you have to recite the Ranger Creed. And he'll tell you, third stanza of the Ranger Creed, and then you have to repeat it. And if you get it wrong, you go outside and you get to do it again. And then you get to do it again until you finally get it right. A friend of mine, Jeff Bannister, was another captain, and he was going through it with me. And after he'd gone through this like 3 times, we're standing outside waiting to come in, and he starts taking off all his clothes. And I'm like, Jeff, what are you doing? And he's like, this is the last time I'm doing this. I'm not going to do this again. So what's your plan? He's like, I'm going in naked. So he put the harness on, completely buck naked, and he goes in and hits the door and gets zapped, completely naked. And then they were like, okay, you're good. We don't need to see that anymore. And I have a little card that I keep, because if you get assigned to another unit and you can't prove that you've been prop blasted, they'll make you do it again. So I still have that card. One of the other things that I got to do was an exercise called Mungadai. Has nothing to do with my name, but at that time the Ranger Regimental Commander was an officer who had spent most of his early captain's time in Delta Force. And so he highly believed in doing this tough selection process stuff. And so we did basically a 4-day Ranger school where he gave us a mission, and all of the men behind there, except for him and the Ranger Regimental Commander there is over on the right-hand side. That's Dave Grange, if anybody knows who that name is. All the rest of us are captains. And they take an entire Ranger platoon's worth of combat equipment, and all the captains have to split it up and carry it. And you do that for this 4-day mission. And there's no sleep and no food. I think the third night we were given directions to go find a cache where there was food, and we dug it up, and there was 1 rice ball and 1 shrimp for each one of us to eat. So that was it. And I got to do that twice, because he took every captain in the unit through it once a year. And if you didn't hang with it, you didn't stay in the unit. He would replace you with somebody else. I'm going to try and keep moving quick here because we're coming up on time. The second time I got to go to Korea, I was, again, the personnel officer with the Ranger Battalion, and we were doing recruiting. So we were going out to all of the posts, and we were giving briefings, encouraging, because an officer would go there for 12 months, and then they have to go someplace else. So we're like, hey, what a great way we take somebody that's got Korea experience and bring them to a Ranger Battalion. So we looked for officers and NCOs to do that. And on this particular occasion, that's at the DMZ in Panmunjom, the little peace building there. The building that we're standing in is the building that they do the negotiations in. And inside that building, it's a Quonset hut that runs from north to south, and the north side of it's in North Korea and the south side's in South Korea. And inside, there's a big conference table kind of like this. And on that conference table is a wire that has microphones tied to it. That wire is the exact line between North and South Korea. So when the North comes in, they stay on that side, and the South comes in, they stay on the South side, and that's where they do their negotiations. Once an hour, the building switches from side to side. And so each side gets to go in and make sure that the other side didn't, plant any listening devices or explosives or anything like that. So during one of the rotations we were there, we got to go in, and we went on the North Korean side, and that's a North Korean soldier looking over our shoulder while we're standing in North Korea. So yeah, I have the distinction of saying that I've been in North Korea. That's the S3 section of the 1st Ranger Battalion, which was the last assignment that I had on active duty. Joe Votel is the guy on the right with his hands clasped. He retired as a 4-star general. He replaced Admiral McRaven as the US SOCOM commander, and then he was the CENTCOM commander, and now he's the Chief Executive Officer of Business Executives for National Security. He was just on CNN last week where they were talking about the stuff that's going on over in the Middle East. Marty Martin would have been back over there, but I've got him cut off. Odom is the guy that's on my right side. Odom is the one that I mentioned before that became a Ranger Regimental Commander later. There he's a captain, and he played a big role in post 9/11 in the War on Terror. And I'm trying to think if there's any other notables. A guy named Burleson that's right over my left shoulder. The last time I saw him, he was a full colonel, and he was commanding a unit at the Old Guard in Washington, D.C. Last exercise that I went on, 29 Palms. Maybe this is where I decided to pick up rock climbing and hiking, because that was after we got done with our mission. We had to walk down this gully that had these huge boulders in it. And that was the small planning cell that I was with for that operation. And I left active duty in 1993, went into the reserves for a short period of time. got promoted to major in the reserves. And then 1997, I had back surgery and went inactive, and I did not go reactive in the military after my back surgery. So that's pretty much my story. Got a minute for questions if anybody wants to ask anything.
I got a question.
Sure.
I saw one of the pictures you had the jungle boots on. I thought that was only a Vietnam thing where soldiers wore jungle boots.
Vietnam thing in Ranger Regiment. Yeah, when I first got there, they issued all the Rangers the jungle boots. And then we promptly took them out, ripped off the soles, got rid of that metal plate that's in the bottom, and then put like Vibram soles or Ripple soles on the bottom because they were more comfortable to walk in. So we were allowed to do some things like that. The 3 Ranger battalions are weird because when I was there, the 1st Ranger Battalion, they called it the Nazi Battalion because if it wasn't in regulations, you couldn't do it. Like you couldn't wear Oakley sunglasses because that wasn't regulation. 2nd Ranger Battalion in Washington State, that was the Hollywood Battalion because they could go out and they could buy Gore-Tex boots and they could wear whatever sunglasses they wanted to wear. And then the 3rd Ranger Battalion was right next to the regimental headquarters, so they kind of had to follow the law, but they wanted to be like 2nd Battalion, so they're kind of like the redheaded stepchild that everybody just tolerated. So it was funny then. Yes, sir.
You mentioned you had a friend at the time, Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
His name was not on war. The reason?
Because it was after the end of the war. 2001, right before 9/11. Back here and then over here.
In the Air Force Reserve, we had the ROTC program as well. When I was going through college, a guy, 19-year-old young kid, just like you were, he went to airborne school the same year you went. You might know him, but his name was Buddy Australia.
The name's not familiar, but I could probably look him up in my little yearbook.
They needed one volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the only one stupid enough to raise his
hand.
He was going to be a fighter, I want to be a fighter pilot. He was a pilot
nice.
training in another 2 years or whatever. But they needed a guy to go down there. He said, "Oh, okay, I'll do it. It'll be fun." He came back. He was like 25 pounds lighter.
Yeah, Georgia in August at airborne school is not fun. We still ran in boots and fatigues, so no PT uniforms then. I was in the 2nd class that had women, and they didn't integrate the women into the unit. They had them as a separate platoon all by themselves. So whenever we ran, the women were all in a platoon at the front and all the men were in platoons behind them. And and I've run into some women that were in that class. It was pretty rare. Some of them became general officers, which is kind of cool.
The cool thing though was when we graduated, he already had jump wings on his uniform.
Yeah. Yeah, when I went to ROTC Advanced, so airborne school was my basic training. Because kind of like with him, I got a 3-year ROTC scholarship, and because I was on scholarship, the school had a slot for airborne school, and they asked me if I wanted to go. And I had done 0 military training, none. My hair was down like over my collar, over my ears, and I showed up to Fort Benning like that. And that was my first ass chewing in the military, was to go get a haircut. And I walked up, I carried my suitcase up to the 2nd floor of the barracks that we were in. I took my stuff out and I just kind of threw it in the wall locker, and there was an Annapolis cadet that was assigned to be my roommate. And he was horrified. He said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm putting my stuff in the wall locker. And he's like, no, you have to hang it up. It all has to face this way. And you got to roll your socks. And I'm like, why would I want to roll my socks? I mean, I'm just going to put them on later. So it was total learning on the fly. And then I walked over and I sat on the bunk. And he about jumped out the window because he's like, what? Yeah, what are you doing? And so I walked down and I wanted to get a little trim and ended up bald. And then I went by the PX and I bought hangers because I didn't bring any hangers with me. So I had to go buy hangers before I could hang my stuff up. And yeah, so it was interesting, but I loved it. That was awesome, sir.
Yeah.
Did the VA really deny your back issues as being service related?
So,
Ridiculous.
yes and no. So I have 3 herniated discs in my neck that they say are not service connected. In my medical records, I have injuries to my neck. I have an artificial right hip that they say is not service connected. And I do have VA disability for the L5S1 area because I had one episode where I had to go into physical therapy while I was on active duty. But I have now degenerative arthritis that runs all through that lower spine area that the VA says is not service connected. And so it's really, the thing that is, it's so disheartening about it because when you walk in there, you have to complain, right? Oh, it hurts and I feel like, you know, all this stuff. And you don't want to do that with this person that's sitting there. It's like, don't you understand what I did in the military? You get hurt doing that stuff. So just to prove it, I shouldn't have to plead my case with you to get you to say that, yeah, it's okay for us to you know, give you a 10% disability or whatever that is. So it's a really frustrating experience.
But that just blows me away.
I still have trouble with my right arm right now. I tweaked it this week when I was doing climbing. The VA probably say I shouldn't be doing that, but when I was in Ranger School, I'm going to show off my arms here. I got you can see this little crinkle in my bicep. I caught the static line as I left the aircraft, and it ripped my right bicep, and it pushed it down about 1/2 of an inch. And I was wearing a field jacket liner. Yeah, I was very lucky because I was wearing a nylon field jacket liner under my uniform shirt. So the static line grabbed and twisted, but inside my arm, it kind of slipped on my arm. I still have the uniform shirt, and it's got a yellow burn mark all the way around the bicep. And I didn't leave training because I wasn't going to quit Ranger School. And if I left Ranger School, I wasn't coming back. So, but the result of that is there's nothing in my medical records. So anything that's going on with my right arm, the VA says is not service connected. And they won't believe me when I say, but I can show you the uniform.
The VA is still operating under the World War I guidelines because they had no plan. And it was just an offshoot of our executive committee. It was for many years to follow. And when you came back from World War I, because you were a volunteer, they didn't want to hear about anything that was bad over there, nothing. And my uncle had been in World War I as a nurse, believe it or not. And he had dealt with the guys that were gassed and stuff like that. And he was telling me all of this stuff about 2 days before I went in the military. And I thought, well, this is going to be a joy. And about how horrible the guys, you know, that had been gassed by the Germans were, I mean, just falling apart and everything else. And he said, whatever you do, don't ever tell anybody that I told you that. That was the training. When they got home, they didn't want to hear about any of the bad stuff at all. If you complained or you had a problem, they didn't want to hear about that. They deny a claim in a minute. So, I mean, you had to virtually get shot or something that you could go in there and prove without complaining about. And that has carried over for years in the VA. Don't tell anybody about what you did. And people go Looney Tunes. When they can speak about it and write it down, it gets everything out of their mind, and they don't have PTSD as bad. I mean, I still got it, but still, it's helped a lot by writing out all this stuff and talking about it, you know. But yeah, that was the name of the tune.
Well, a lot of you have met my friend Mike Schlitz, double arm amputee from Iraq. And when he was on active duty going through the medical retirement process, he was down in San Antonio at the Center for the Intrepid, you know, going through all the burn treatments and all of that stuff. And he said they have photographs of him completely naked all over because they got to document all the injuries. I'm with him about 1.5 years after he retired, and he gets a phone call from somebody at the VA, and the VA says, we need to schedule you to come in so that we can examine you and confirm your injuries. And he said, you have pictures of me. And they said, it doesn't matter, we need to confirm your injuries.
Yeah.
And he's like, do you think my arms grew back? I mean, I'm hearing him tell that he got really, really angry with this guy on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
Because the guy was insistent that Mike, and from Mike's perspective, now what he has to do is his mom has to stop whatever she's doing for the day that they go for the appointment, because she has to drive him from Columbus, Georgia to Atlanta, where they got to go all of the, inspection, the physical and all of that. So it's this whole long day of stuff. And Mike has, we do a lot of this to ourselves. When he was in the Warrior Transition Unit, they wanted him to come in every morning at 6 o'clock for accountability formation. And he said, for me to be there at 6, that means I have to wake up at 4, because it takes a while to get my arms put on and that kind of stuff. But he said, I'm going to get up at 4, then I have to go to bed by 5, because the sleep meds that you give me knock me out for like 10 hours. And I have to take those, so he's backing up through the process of, for him to be there at 6 o'clock every morning, he has to start going to bed like at 3 in the afternoon. And they were like, no, you have to come. It's like, what are you going to do to me? And that, I mean, there's so many examples like that. It's not even funny.
Oh, yeah.
I totally forgot. If anybody wants to look at these, this is, I won't tell you why, but we called it an elephant rubber to keep all your stuff nice and dry. My Ranger handbook that I carried, which is still all nice and dry. I carried an emergency religious ministry card to be able to provide last rites if I needed to. And this is the planning book that I developed when I was the system plans officer at the 1st Ranger Battalion. And the papers are the write in the rain stuff, so you can write on it with a pencil and in the rain, and then you can erase it later. And I wasn't supposed to keep this, but I didn't care, so I did. And this is the same stuff that they used for 9/11, because the policy that I wrote ended up, the guy that I worked for later became the Ranger Regimental Commander, so he took it with him and it became the regimental standard. So my little claim to fame is that I helped the policy that the regiment used when they did the parachute assault. But any other questions? We're over on time. I sure appreciate everybody being here. To have a question. Oh, you had a question.
Yeah, just very briefly. What would be in your assessment, the tough leadership challenge that you faced, and how did you deal with it?
Working with Zach. No, seriously, that's. I love him so much. I make fun of him all the time, and I hope that you know that I do it out of love. My greatest leadership challenge that I failed at, and I've told this story before, was a staff sergeant that was a drunk. And I was company commander, and that staff sergeant, you can pass that around if you want to run it around the room real quick. We had a 100% urinalysis alcohol test one morning before PT. And he registered when he did the breath thing. So he got hauled in front of the battalion commander, and he was not a good leader. This kid was not. He was not very effective. And so I kind of had a target on him anyway. I wanted to get rid of him. And so when he went in front of the battalion commander, I told the battalion commander, you need to hammer him because he's not a good leader. So he got busted from E6 to E5 with a suspension to E4, if I remember right. And what that means is if he screws up again, then I tell the battalion commander writes his name on something, and now he's at E4 instead of E5. So he doesn't have to go back through another administrative process. When he becomes an E4, now I've got him. I have jurisdiction. When he becomes an E6, the battalion commander, I can't punish him. The battalion commander has to do that. And so he screwed up again. He got busted to E4, and then he screwed up again. And so I called him in my office, and I busted him to E3. And I told him that, did he want to leave the Army with 0 rank after like 14 years? And then, I don't know if I blocked it out of my memory or what, but after that, I remember him getting punished one more time, and then he was gone. And I think that I got him chaptered out of the Army, which is basically thrown out of the Army. And I never tried to find out why he had an alcohol issue. And in retrospect now, I really wish that I had tried to determine what was going on to get him the kind of help that he needed, instead of just hammering him to get rid of him. I probably ruined his life, and I don't know if he's still alive now. But that was my greatest leadership challenge, and I failed at it.
Yeah, Carl, in all fairness, the drug and alcohol conversations when we were all in, they weren't the same as they are today. Our DAP on base was a clown.
Yeah, but still,
I know, but I'm saying our DAP on base was a clown, nobody paid attention.
Yeah.
And I look back at how many guys screwed up their lives with booze while we were in it. Nobody ever asked them why.
Yep.
And that was a misgiving for the general services, in my opinion.
Yep.
But we all.
Drinking was part of the culture back in the day.
100%, absolutely. But you had to do it in a manner that was accepted, right? And what that meant was, if he had been an effective leader, we wouldn't have cared. If he'd been an effective leader, we would not have cared. But because he wasn't an effective leader, I want to get rid of him. That's really the bottom line. It didn't have anything to do with the alcohol. The alcohol became a vehicle to get rid of him.
I got a general Army question. If I followed your timeline correctly, you went to Ranger school, but then you weren't assigned to a Ranger battalion, right? I don't really get that. Why would you go to school if they weren't intending you to go to a Ranger battalion?
Ranger school is considered a leadership school. It's not a qualifier for Ranger Regiment.
So you can go to jump school, but then not go to an airborne?
Absolutely. Yep. Matter of fact, one of my favorite stories when I talk about the value of a self-image, General McConville just retired from active duty, 4-star general, been on active duty for 30 plus years, has basic airborne wings, which means probably 5 jumps. I don't think he did Ranger school, so probably didn't get any additional jumps. So how does a 4-star general serve in the military for 30 plus years and not serve in an airborne unit? You know, because he clearly didn't want to, or he would have been able to make that happen. So why did he go to jump school? Why did he waste the government resources to go to jump school? Because he could, and because he wanted the wings on his uniform. He had the self-image of the wings. So he gave up a month in his summertime and went through the heat of Georgia and the danger of jumping to get his wings, and then didn't ever do it again. I could be completely wrong. Maybe he served in an airborne unit, didn't go to jump master school, but I doubt it. So yeah, that happens. There are a lot of people that go to Ranger school that never serve in the Ranger Regiment. It's kind of a double standard, because who's the senator? Tom Cotton, right? Tom Cotton's got a Ranger tab. And so when he was running for, I think he's Arkansas, is that right? Yeah. So when he was running for election, his bio said he was a Ranger. Well, a bunch of veterans jumped on him and said, oh, he's not a Ranger. He went to Ranger school, got a Ranger tab, but he's not a Ranger because he never served in the Ranger Regiment, right? So they were using that to nitpick at him. If you are in the Ranger Regiment, you can't be in a position of leadership over another soldier unless you have a Ranger tab. So you have to have graduated from that leadership school. You can be a private in the Ranger Regiment without a Ranger tab, but you can't be a leader in Ranger Regiment unless you have a Ranger tab. So you can be a Ranger without a Ranger tab, but you can have a Ranger tab and not be a Ranger. So it absolutely is. So that's when, you know, somebody says, hey, I was a Ranger, where did you serve? Well, I was in the 1st Cav. Okay, so you went to Ranger school, right? Graduated from the Army's most difficult leadership school. Awesome. You know, but Rangers serve in a Ranger Regiment. So it's...
My son, you can tell all the Air Force Academy grads because they all have jump wings. Yep. Well, why do they have jump wings? They're Air Force pilots. But it's like a waste of money to me to send these guys to jump school. But that's how you
They don't go to the same
specific
Air Force table.
It's the same school.
Yeah. No, they don't go to the same jump school. The Air Force Academy, they go to the Academy jump school.
And they were the same wings.
They were the same
Army
wings.
guys.
Yeah. So,
you know, I think that theoretically they're supposed to parachute out if their plane has a problem, so maybe that's why. I don't.
No, wasn't maybe fun.
I love the questions, but we're way over on time. Was there any other questions?
Y'all want to get a group picture?
Yeah, I think we ought to it'd be awesome to get a group picture. Merry Christmas, everybody. And y'all be safe over the holidays.
Anybody want some trash? Got one.
I got a lot of that same, saw the problem, didn't do it, they did their job.
Yeah.
I get it. Man, that was every mission, everything you ever complete, always ended in a good spot. So I'm retrained to celebrate.
Hey, Zach, stop the recording. You gonna stick around for the picture? Or you
I gotta go.
escape now?
Nice to meet you.